So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Leandro Santos, Senior Growth Manager at Winclap, and I'm super excited to be participating on this webinar together with Karina Doch, Head of Growth from Playkids, and also Tommy Yiannopoulos. Please let me know if I pronounce it well, Director of Sales from Remerge. Today, we are going to start off by talking about how can we understand the key learnings from the 2020, because there has been quite a bit going on this year, and also share like some perspectives and trends that we see upcoming from the 2021. So please remember that you have the Q&A chat here to throw your questions, and we will cover by the end of the session. And also the webinar is going to be recorded to watch it later on demand. So thank you very much, guys, for joining us. I would like to do a quick run of introductions from you. Introduce yourself and your companies. So Tommy, if you want to start.
Yeah, sure. My name is Tommy Yiannopoulos. Leandro, you pronounced my last name perfectly. I appreciate that. I am the Director of Sales in the US at Remerge. Remerge is a performance marketing DSP for app marketers. We historically have focused predominantly on retargeting and re-engagement efforts for marketers who want to re-engage their consumers to drive incremental revenues, engagement, reduce churn, etc. That's the premise upon which our business is built, and will continue to operate into the foreseeable future.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Karina, do you want to go on?
Yeah, well, I'm Karina Doch, and you pronounce my name correctly too. It's super rare. So thank you. I'm head of growth at Playkids. Playkids is a Brazilian company that develops products for children. And we actually have 3 business units that we work on. So the first one and the original one is the Playkids app, which is a educational and entertainment app for kids until 5 years old. Then we have a book club that runs here in Brazil. And the most recent one is our games business unit that actually became a studio in December, and we got a new name. So it's called Afterverse. It's the new brand we're working on. And the idea also is not just to do games for kids, but for all audiences. So our main game on Afterverse right now is PKXD, which has around 27 million MAU, and it's growing really fast the last year.
Amazing. Yeah, my cousins play PKHD. So,
great, good to know.
So I already mentioned I'm Leandro, a growth manager at Winclap, and at Winclap we help mobile app and games advertisers with their user acquisition, re-engagement, and reactivation campaigns across multiple channels. We do it with proprietary technology. When we help, we analyze data with AI, and we give budget allocation recommendations. And we also work as an extension of our client's team from a with our performance managers and also with our creative studio. So with this said, before we jump into this, David, I would like to play a game with you with some ice-breaking and random questions to know more about you and your journey this year. So first of all, let's start with Tommy. What's your favorite gaming device? You prefer mobile, tablets, consoles, PC?
So when I grew up, I wasn't I wasn't allowed to have like a PlayStation or anything like that. Very strange, but I didn't have anything growing up. When quarantine hit though, the day things started getting pretty crazy here in the US, I ran to Best Buy and I got an Xbox because I figured, hey, this is a great time to start doing nothing with my life and just gaming all the time. So I got an Xbox, and I at the beginning of quarantine would play Halo with my buddies, and we'd all do FaceTime and give each other insights as to how it went. It got pretty intense, but I guess Xbox is my favorite console, though I haven't touched that since maybe April or May. And I game a little bit on my phone, but I guess Xbox.
Okay. What about you, Karina?
I'm more of a mobile girl. I prefer to play on mobile. I guess most women do. But I do also really enjoy playing console. It's just not, I don't dedicate that much time to console than I do on mobile. But I like playing Switch and PS4.
Okay, that's great. So about your 2020, what new skill have you picked up on 2020? You can add. It could be cooking, musician, you become a TikToker, I don't know. Tommy.
I guess I guess it's a skill. I don't know. We like a lot of people bought a bike for indoor biking, and so for doing spin classes and all that. So I do that every day now. I don't know if it's a skill because literally anyone can pedal a bicycle that doesn't move and doesn't require any balance. But that was probably my newest endeavor in during the pandemic.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, I live in an apartment, so I always wanted to have a lot of plants and flowers, but I was never able to make them live. So they died really quickly. And last year, I said it like ago, okay, I'm staying home. I'm not gonna forget to water them. And so that was, I'm not as good as I would like to, but they're surviving and I'm happy.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. If they are alive, it's good.
Yeah.
Last question, and then we jump into the David. Do you prefer, Tommy, do you prefer villains or superheroes?
Oh, superheroes. Why would I prefer villains? Yeah, villains. I mean, I guess with no villains, there are no superheroes. So one cannot be without the other. But yeah, I'm all for the good guys. Come on.
Okay. Okay. What about you, Karina?
Yeah, I'm the same opinion. I guess you don't have to have villains to have problems in the world, like a specific person that causes all the problems. The problems exist for several reasons. So there's always gonna be a hero that's gonna solve, or heroes that are gonna try to solve the problems that we have. Getting out a little bit of the perspective of movies and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm more of a hero.
Also superheroes. Okay,
yeah.
That's cool. Well, thank you very much for sharing. Just some ice breaking. Now let's start talking with the debate and how can we understand the key changes in mobile in 2020. We have seen a lot of things going on. Just to mention that we have seen a really huge increase in consumer spend. And this is some data that we pull from some reports, but we have seen around like 25% growth comparing with the 2019, and most of that spend went to the gaming industry. As you might know, like around 70% of that consumer spend growth. Also, a huge increase in downloads in gaming and across other categories as well. And I think because people were looking for new ways of entertainment and engaging during the pandemic. So I think it was a really interesting year in the history of mobile industry. What surprised you most in 2020 as related to the game economy and the game advertising? No, Karina, if you want to start.
Yeah, I guess for me, what surprised me is how long, like it wasn't just a peak when everything started and everyone went home. So when like it went global, right? When quarantine went global, we thought, okay, it's gonna be like 1, 2, 3 months where we're gonna grow a lot and everything, and then it's gonna go back to normal. We hoped actually, but it didn't happen. So that's what the thing that surprised me the most is that we continued growing throughout the year. So we had a good pacing, especially in gaming. That's where I can see it more. If we look into the educational products like Playkids, we didn't see the same trend. So there was like a peak, and then it began to go back to normal when kids were kind of allowed to go back to school, and depending on the countries. But in gaming, it was like a steady growth.
Yeah, definitely. Tommy?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about 2020 is it sheds light on the idea that everyone is a gamer, right? Historically, when you label someone a gamer, you immediately picture them like, you know, in their parents' basement eating Cheetos and playing, you know, Xbox or something like that, just being gross, right? But the reality is everyone games in some capacity, right? And mobile's allowed for that in a lot of ways. And gaming saw just wonderful growth. But again, it really solidified that fact that gaming is for everyone. You know, being a gamer is not a strange label like it used to be when put on a person, right? Now the first question you asked is what's your favorite way to game, and we both had answers for it, right? And I play mobile games, and Karina plays mobile games, and really everyone does at this point. So 2020 was fascinating in that regard, in terms of just overall trends, in terms of tactical things that we recognize. You know, obviously we at Remerge, we're a retargeting platform, right? So it's always fascinating to see how does retargeting rise and over time. And in 2020, within the gaming space, again, we saw pretty significant growth within the retargeting space as partners wanted to keep their users longer and get, you know, more revenue from them. So happy to talk about that more a little bit later on, but I'd say those are some of the most interesting kind of surprises of 2020.
Yeah, I think we have seen like a really like the people who already play more because they had like more time, and then we have seen like fast mobile adoption from other people and joining us to this to more games, to more apps. So definitely. And how did your teams adapt to this like changing environments or like this fast growth that we have seen? How did you adapt to that? Karina, if you want to go.
That's a tough question. Because I think everyone just at the beginning just wanted to understand what was going to happen. So there was a lot of risks, and that we didn't know how it would play out. For us, our fiscal year begins in April, so we were just like defining our goals and everything for the year, and we're like, we have no idea where this is going. So it was a weird year, to say the least. But I mean, looking into our products, we just I guess we just tried to bring a little bit of the reality that everyone was living to our products. So I worked with growth, especially looking into monetization, and our game PKXD is a social game, right? So we introduced some things that were happening here with us into the game. So the characters, they could wear masks, and you had to wash your hands and things like that to make it more relatable to what everyone was going through. So I think that was the focus, and also to try to understand like the new players that you mentioned, how they were actually like performing in our game, right? If they were like quality players, if they were spending a lot. So I was actually seeing a study last week that the new players, they were actually spending more than the old ones, because I guess like they never had this experience. They're not like regular players for many years. They were like thrown into a new world and a new entertainment form, and they were spending more. So our efforts were also to understand how can we get the most of this moment, and not only just when it was happening, but how can we sustain it for a long time, right? To keep like a good LTV and not just revenue in the month.
Yeah, I think it's like empathize with the audience, not from the product point of view, like giving more features and ways to engage, and also how we communicate to them. Tommy, what do you think? How your team at Remerge adapt to this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would say degrees of empathy and presenting opportunity would be two of the ways, right? The reality that we faced and that tons of advertisers faced who weren't in gaming was that they could no longer advertise, right? Think of the travel vertical, for example. No one could travel anywhere. It was incredibly sad, honestly. I mean, a lot of people lost their jobs. It was really a horrible situation. Still is a horrible situation. And as an ad platform and a DSP, we obviously want revenue from travel partners. And in normal circumstances, if someone wants to pause a campaign, we say, hey, please don't, and please look at this data a different way, or let's talk about this, right? But the reality here was, there was a lot of acceptance that we had to have, and a lot of empathy we had to have for what other organizations were going through. And so that sales component of what we do as a business really had to go out the door in some capacity within some verticals. On the flip side, within the gaming space, there was tremendous opportunity, right? When you think about it, all right, if every travel brand out there and a lot of the financial brands even think about like credit score apps, for example, right? No one's getting credit cards or using credit cards to travel, so those apps have decreased use. There's a number of verticals that exit the marketplace, and with that, and with the rise in people gaming more, the amount of inventory that became available was far greater than it was before, right? Couple that with the fact that there's less advertisers in the market, increased inventory means there's tons of opportunity to acquire users or to retain users at a low cost, right? So a lot of our goal and the way that we look to demonstrate value and execute against the landscape was by demonstrating to our partners that this was a fantastic opportunity for them to acquire users and retain users at a low cost. So I would say those two components were key factors in what allowed us to adapt to the realities of 2020.
Amazing. And for the two of you, like, what, if anything, could have been done better, if you think in retrospect, or if anything? If not,
you can always do something better.
Yeah,
exactly.
Who wants to start? I can start. Yeah. I got it. Yeah. This is more of a tactical thing, right? And something that, again, we can get into in a little bit, but I mentioned earlier that retargeting was on the rise in 2020, even more than it was in 2019. And with retargeting, for a lot of brands, it's new to them, right? And a lot of brands actually really wanted to invest in retargeting in 2020 because they were seeing such user growth, and they really wanted to retain their users, educate their consumers, and really keep them in the apps longer, right? We could always do a better job of educating the app ecosystem as to what retargeting looks like when it's done really effectively. And I think, that was something that at Remerge, I wish we at times did a little bit better, right? It's not like a huge problem, but it's sometimes hard to pinpoint where people are on the spectrum of understanding retargeting within the context of their business, right? Some advertisers are incredibly sophisticated and they get all the bells and whistles and they're ready to go. Others require a ton more education and hand-holding. And so we had instances where, we think the value we're driving is just tremendous and awesome, but the advertiser's still at those early stages of learning how to execute retargeting effectively. And I think that's something that we're continuing to iterate against, continuing to do better, right? Is that education piece and the market education of how you can keep your users longer, because it's just so valuable.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that I guess we were all very cautious, like at the beginning, because we didn't know how everyone was going to behave. We had a clue that probably mobile would grow, but either way, we were cautious with how we invested in UA, and if we did any campaigns to like bring more people or increase revenue. So I guess if I had a do-over, I probably would be a little bit more aggressive than I was with all the strategies we had, so we could seize the moment a little bit more. We still grew a lot, but very organically also. So I guess that's something that we learned throughout the year. So as the months were going, okay, we can go further and we can invest more and can be more aggressive. But with a do-over, probably would do it earlier than we did it.
Don't worry, that was happening
Yeah, to
all
everyone.
the advertisers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
It's something like historical. So, well, thank you for sharing. There was any product advancement, or you mentioned some, Karina, or any marketing tool that you were expecting to leverage in 2020, guys, and never came to fruition because of the situation?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know if it was because of the situation, but I think there are tools. Most of the tools I'm looking forward to, exist in some capacity. It's just what is their level of adoption, right? That's always kind of the challenge that we face when it comes to new products. So I think of two in 2020 that I would have liked to see go a little bit further. And one of these Karina can definitely speak to, and I think in 2021 it'll play a bigger role. But the first is incrementality, right? We run retargeting. We focus on incrementality measurement to a large degree. We think it's important that we're able to demonstrate lift over organic behavior and other behaviors that consumers have within an app. That is getting adopted at a super high rate, but the education around it, this goes to my earlier point, right, still isn't there. And there's just massive discrepancies in what certain advertisers understand in the context of incrementality and what other advertisers understand. So that's something that I'd really like to see further development on. We're definitely getting better over time. I had expectations that in 2020, it would become more ubiquitous. I actually even had expectations in 2020 that some of the MMPs and the measurement providers would play a bigger role in incrementality measurement. And we did see some of them, like AppsFlyer, for example, launched their audiences tool, and that has some incrementality and uplift capabilities now. But I would have liked to see, I think, a more active role taken by other MMPs in that same regard. In addition, first price auctions. So we're a DSP, right? So everything we do is programmatic advertising, serving ads to publishers like Playkids, right? And first price auctions have increased in use. They're still not fully there, right? The whole industry isn't yet using first price auctions. And essentially what that does is it does a better job of democratizing the manner in which we buy ad inventory, right? It doesn't allow for preferential treatment or waterfall treatment for certain advertisers. And it gives us a better understanding of what the real value of an ad impression is within the context of a performance campaign. So I would have liked to see that go a little bit further, but we're definitely doing really well in that regard. But yeah, those are probably the two things that I was looking forward to and got close, but not fully there.
Yeah, from the monetization point of view, I guess 2020 went better than I expected tool-wise, because we are especially looking into ads monetization. We've been like having the expectations of working with the bidding solutions, like the auctions that Tommy mentioned in mobile for like 3 years, and the tools weren't there yet. They weren't mature enough. So what I saw this year was actually a good thing, that there was a massive adoption by all the gaming studios with the bidding solutions, and we also had like a consolidation of the best tools. So it's more reliable. We have more networks and DSPs connecting to the bidding solutions. Each one has its pros and cons, but the adoption grew massively, and the results were also very good for us, especially. But I talked to other people in the industry, and they cannot see like how it's gonna go in the future without the bidding solution. But I don't think that waterfalls are gonna die this like as soon as everyone expected. We're gonna be working with mixed solutions between bidding and waterfall for a long time, because, well, there's like, who is gonna connect with which platform is gonna go out on top. We have some indications, but not necessarily like a clear winner yet. And let's see how it goes.
Okay, amazing. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, definitely. And I think you gave us like the pick to start thinking about 2021, right? This new year. And I think we all agree that we have seen this unprecedented growth in the gaming industry and also in other categories like online learning and fintechs and so on. And we believe that we might expect this engagement to be strong as well in 2021, because mainly of this mobile adoption of the audiences. So I think companies have to take an advantage of that. Thinking on as we begin 2021, like what has you excited? What do you expect? What do you think is going to be the trend for 2021? From game economy and from game advertising. Who wants to start?
Well, the first thing is, I think one of the questions before going like to major question like IDFA, one of the main questions that we are all asking is, how is it gonna behave post-COVID? And if we take into consideration that vaccinations are happening, like people are gonna start getting back to their normal lives soon. It's how is the growth gonna behave? So I guess I don't think that we're gonna keep growing the same pace. That's obvious, because like whomever didn't go into gaming, mobile gaming last year, probably it's not gonna start this year. So it's still a growing industry. It's gonna still be. So we have a lot of new players. How are we gonna retain them? How are we gonna monetize them? How does it look in this new like constitutions? Do we have different profiles of players? So I think it's gonna be, we're gonna still grow as an industry, but in a lower pace than we did before, like last year, I mean.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, right? It's all hypothetical, right? I have no way of knowing anything, but I tend to think once life gets back to normal, I do think people are going to be very excited to get away from their screens for a moment. But the reality is also that, far more people game today than they did yesterday, and there's an argument that you can make that the paradigm again around who games and how they game has changed, and maybe the way that we as a society just game is going to change from now on, right? And it's just a part of everyone's life. That's totally a possibility. But in terms of what I've got, what's kind of exciting me about 2021, there's just so much uncertainty around like the pandemic, around device ID changes. Exactly. I just a big part of me wishes I could jump forward to September or later or whatever and just see how it all plays out, because there's a chance that it's going to be a lot of heartache. We'll see. I hope not. But I'm excited. I think from a technical and product perspective, when we think about performance advertising, especially in the gaming space, the creative types haven't changed in like a couple of years, right? Playables are probably the most innovative creative that we've seen, and those were built 4 or 5 years ago, honestly. Maybe not 5, but probably the early stage Playables is around that time, right? Ask ourselves, like, what have we seen since then, right? What super interesting, compelling creatives have we seen since Playables or since video or whatever? And there's not much to speak to, right? So I think, and I hope 2021, because of some of the changes that are coming down, serves as somewhat of an impetus for us to innovate on the creative front. I think that'd be really exciting. And we're due for new creative advancements in this industry, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think with this, talking about the creative messages that we gave on the creatives, I guess also changed with all these things and thinking on empathize with the audience and what the users are looking today, of these new ways of entertainment, of the new ways of socializing, of connecting with other people. That's also something to consider from the creative point of view, I guess, in this year as well. So 2021, the question that we all are talking, we have been talking in the last key of the year, and for sure we are talking a lot in 2021, ID changes and privacy. Like, what's your team doing to prepare for the IDFA changes, and ultimately, of course, the GA ID changes as well?
Yeah, sure.
Karina, or
I can go.
you can go.
This is probably
Yeah.
so probably the most important for a retargeting platform to figure this out. But I think listen, at the end of the day, we want to embrace what it is that Apple is changing, right? There's no point from our perspective in trying to skirt around the changes, find band-aid solutions, or basically find ways to kind of break the laws and break the rules that they're putting in front of us, right? It doesn't serve any purpose. Our goal now as a business is to say, how can we embrace these changes and how can we seize them as an opportunity? And so for us at Remerge, really, the IDFA changes for us present an opportunity to broaden the scope of what it is we offer the industry, right? So historically, we only do retargeting. Well, think about a future in which we have no idea which IDFAs are downloading your app. Well, obviously, we can't really retarget anymore in the same way we do today, right? So we're going to likely broaden the scope of what it is we provide to user acquisition as well, which is really exciting for us. But our kind of business aim and objective doesn't change too much, right? We want to provide performance advertising for app developers and brands that want to grow their audience base, that want to retain their audience base, but most importantly, in my opinion, that want to have an honest and empirical understanding of what is the value that we are driving for them, right? Which hints at the idea of incrementality again, right? So a lot of our goals are centered on the idea of how can we provide scalable solutions that measure incrementality in the absence of IDFAs, and then ultimately one day further down the line in the absence of GAIDs. It's a huge problem, but I think we owe it to consumers to have their best interests at heart first and foremost, and to develop solutions around what is best for the general public. So that's our goal as a business. And again, I'm excited to see what happens. The implications of the IDFA change, span the whole industry, right? Measurement changes, user acquisition changes, retargeting changes, the manner in which we buy supply changes, right? It changes everything. And it's exciting in that way because this is an industry that's been able to adapt wonderfully for years and years. So I'm bullish about what we can provide to app brands in the future.
I like how you see it as an opportunity. Like, this is something that we have talked with some of our partners as well, and because it's something that it's going to happen. I mean, privacy issues and trying to put the user first. So, well, it was a bit faster than expected, or it was like a quick a big shock.
I would argue if there was anything to be frustrated with, it'd be the manner in which it's rolled out, right?
Exactly.
The amount of visibility we have as to the tools. The reality is also, SKI network is a good solution, but to adopt that across the industry, I mean, that's going to take so long, right? And Apple honestly didn't provide enough time for that to happen, which is, if there were a frustrating part, that's it. But it is an opportunity. I have no choice but to look at it as an opportunity, right? We want our business to succeed, and we have to develop solutions for what the future brings.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I think that the main thing that was frustrating is how it all went down. Like, you have 3 months to adapt. What? It's like changing how the business works in the core. Like, how am I gonna advertise? How am I gonna monetize? So I think that's the main thing that frustrated everyone. But yeah, I guess I see the same way as Tommy. It's there's nothing that we can do to change, right? We have to adapt, and it's not the first time that we do that in the industry. So we have to understand how it works, how we're gonna be able to acquire users. And on the monetization side, we don't know how it's gonna affect ads monetization, how we get as publishers our revenue, if our CPM is gonna drop, if our impressions are gonna drop, if the demand is gonna drop. We have no idea. It's just, I think we have to see how it goes to understand. But I'm very confident that the industry is gonna find a way to function properly again, so we can still market our products and make the industry grow the whole environment, right? Not just the products like the games, but everyone that works around it. So yeah, I'm looking at the same way. I think we're gonna find a way to understand it and make it perform again.
Do you think, like, for you, this like possible potential drop of CPM could be a growing pain that you can have in this year?
Yeah, I guess not for my business, because it's for us it's incremental revenue. But I guess like the games that are heavily monetized by ads could face problems, especially the games that have like 50% of the revenue ads based, more casual games. It's gonna be a problem. So if I were them, I would be thinking like, how can I look into my game and see if I can like downsize a little bit the loss what we have. But it's just a probability, right? It's a risk. We're not sure if it's gonna actually happen, if people are gonna like de-invest, so there's not less money going into, so we don't know.
Yeah, if I could add a little bit there, yeah. So today, what you're basically referring to is no ID traffic, right? Traffic that doesn't have an IDFA appended to it. Right now, the CPMs for that traffic, the price that we pay for that traffic, is essentially 60% lower than the price that we pay for ID traffic. Now, I do not think the future that'll stay the same, right? There's no way. What is happening right now is people are just, and advertisers are just executing against the traffic that they have the infrastructures to power, right? But there is a massive amount of no ID traffic out there that isn't being capitalized on, and I think in the future it's going to be challenging for performance marketers and user acquisition managers, because picture a world in which you have no certainty as to who it is you're targeting, right? You have no idea if they have your game. You have no idea if they don't have your game. You have no idea if they would fall in a lookalike audience of similar users to your app. All that goes out the window, right? So one could argue that most performance advertisers will have to pay less to serve impressions to users, because they can't afford it at the same rate they do today, because they can't expect the same conversion rate levels that they do today. Eventually, we'll start working through optimization mechanisms, right? Just because you can't target a certain IDFA doesn't mean we don't know that they're on a certain type of publisher, and that publisher over indexes for a certain type of consumer. And you can go all the way down the line of all the different kinds of metrics that you can pull to approximate what we do today, right? What we do today is deterministic retargeting based off IDs. We'll get close to that in the future, but the price of traffic will ultimately represent how close we get, right? We're not gonna, it'll be cheaper than it is today, even when it's all fleshed out, in my opinion. Obviously, it's all hypothetical. I think it'll all be cheaper, and it'll be because we have less certainty. But we're gonna continue to develop solutions, and the whole industry needs to work on developing solutions for this problem, so that we can drive good results.
How are you planning on tracking success if you're thinking in your company?
Yeah, sure. So we're a DSP, right? At our core, our job is to serve ads, right? Our job isn't necessarily to provide measurement or to provide partners with something like what an Adjust or AppsFlyer or Kochava or Branch or whoever does, right? That being said, we need to be able to optimize our campaigns in the future. So to that end, we'll of course be using tools like SK Ad Network. Like I said before, it's a viable solution for the future, and one that every advertiser is going to integrate. That'll help us track and monitor performance. But also Remerge is building out our own unique set of tools and measurement capabilities that will allow us to optimize campaigns in the future as well. And that's one of the core differences and one of our core focuses. I mentioned before, incrementality is a cornerstone of what it is that we do at our business, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. We're going to continue trying to measure towards driving real outcomes for our partners and real growth for them. So that's our goal and our plan for the future in terms of measurement.
Yeah. Well, for us, yeah, we don't have any choice than work with SK Network. So that's what we're gonna do, and see how everyone else in the industry is adapting. So we're gonna try to measure the return that our users are bringing, the clients are bringing, and see how it goes, because we're not sure either. So
yeah, SK ads, it's a great solution. I always, I have a lot of conversations with advertisers about it these days, right? And I very often come back to the fact that it's a great solution, but it's going to take a really long time for it to be usable in a programmatic environment across the board, right? So let's say for instance, you have SK Ad Network integrated today, right? And let's say, for instance, tomorrow the IDFA starts plummeting in terms of its availability to us. It's not like you can suddenly just start using SK Ad Network. It doesn't work like that, right? It requires really a massive effort from the entire industry to get in a place where it's usable, right? And that's one thing I think is often overlooked with performance marketers in our industry is that can do everything they want it to do, or that it's going to be readily available for them, right? There's a lot of limitations and it's going to take a long time. But at its core, it's a great long-term solution. It's just got to get there and it's going to take some time.
And having all these changes in mind, will your media mix change dramatically, or how do you think it's going to be in 2021?
Well, okay. I mentioned before, we don't have an option in this regard, right? So when we think media mix at Remerge, I think about what kind of performance solutions are we providing our partners, right? So we're now going to be providing, UA and retargeting, obviously, because we won't know if someone has your app or does not have your app. But we have unique ways of being able to measure one versus the other, which is really exciting. And if anyone wants to talk about that, they're welcome to email me. But in any case, we're going to continue to be a programmatic DSP. I am expecting advertisers, their media mixes to change potentially in the immediate future, right? I could see a world in which they rely on self-attributing networks to power some of their campaigns, because you don't need the same level of adoption of SK Network, for example, on a single publisher. Could see that happening, but programmatic will always be one of the most important channels for any marketer, right? Just the sheer scale you can achieve and the media mix that you can achieve through it will always make it an important and viable source. So maybe short-term change in terms of media mix, but long-term they'll come back to programmatic.
Got it.
Well, I can't speak a lot about that because it's not my team that's working on it. So I'm not able to give a straight answer here.
No worries. So, well, I guess thank you very much for sharing. We got a couple of questions here, and I think because we are like close to the ending time, we can go over with some Q&A from the audience. I don't know if my marketing team can help me here because I cannot open the question box. So Juan, if you can read in the questions to the guys.
Sure. Do you hear me well?
Yeah.
Yeah. The first question, how do you think that monetization alternatives will change in 2020, and how have these been affected by the pandemic?
Yes, 2021.
For 2021 or 2020, what changed in the monetization?
What changed in monetization alternatives, and what do you think it will change in 2021?
I mean, there wasn't like a lot of change in the monetization alternatives. I think there were more games that were adopting ads as a different source of monetization, not just in a purchase. We saw like a really big growth for social games, and there is like also a lot of subscriptions models starting on those games. But I don't think there's like that much of a difference comparing to 2019. It was a trend already to have more ads monetization, like mixed monetization games in the industry. What I think is, as I mentioned before, for 2021, the games that are heavily monetized on ads, depending how it goes on iOS, right? Obviously, they have to think in different strategies to have more in a purchase revenue and not rely that much on ads. So yeah, thinking about how can you work on the game economy to have more payers, or think about how can I do something to subscribe. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, well, we don't know how it's gonna be, so it's a little bit hard to think about different monetization strategies, and especially casual games, right? The good thing is that usually iOS users, they spend more than an Android, so I guess it's a more workable audience than if it was on Android.
Yeah, I agree for the most part, if not totally. I mean, there's been a fair amount of discussion about, you know, the switch to more subscription models. The way I look at that is we haven't seen it yet, right? Not at least at scale, right? And if it was that much more lucrative, or if it was equally lucrative, you'd imagine that brands would have done it already to a large degree, right? But it is to be seen, right? Hyper casual games could do that, maybe. I think what we might see more of, though, is more of a reliance on high price point creative ad units or inventory, right? So there's still so much, like, for example, 320 by 50, right? The tiny banner you see at the bottom of your screen, that's still everywhere. And you don't make as much for that as a publisher as you do showing a video ad. So publishers might ask themselves, all right, we have the rates people are willing to pay for these 320 by 50s have gone down even more, but we can offset that now by using video ads or interstitial ads and including more of that inventory on our games. I think that'd be a great way to offset it. And it's honestly just a more compelling user experience to see a video ad or a playable ad or an interstitial. They're just better units in general. So I could see us shifting more towards those kinds of creatives.
We have more questions, Juan?
Yeah, I think this is more for Karina. It says, what vertical in gaming do you see growing more in 2021? And how do you see educational games performing this year?
Well, I think we're gonna like kind of continue the trend with the social games. I think they're gonna still be growing more than other genres in the gaming categories, especially because we started like, okay, there was the factor of the pandemic that incentivized people to find other ways to socialize, but we're not gonna go back to our normal lives so soon. So even vaccination takes a while. I guess we're probably gonna look into 2022 to think about having like being able to socializing with everyone as we did before. And even though I don't think that this kind of habit of to be able to like socialize online on different platforms is gonna go away. So I see the trend continuing for social games. And you mean in the educational games? I don't know. It wasn't really a trend. I actually didn't see in any reports that went out yet that educational games were a trend to like growing trend. It was more like the educational apps in like all the countries. They grew a lot, especially at the beginning, to help parents like what we do with our kids at home, and how can we have a solution that supports education at home. But I don't see any like major like significant trend in the industry for that.
Tell me what I agree with you, and I guess like these like new ways of people trying to engage with other people and to meet with that makes like social gaming one of the more growing, and at least is a trend for this year. What do you think, Tommy? If you have something to.
I can't speak too much about educational gaming because Karina is far more of an expert than I am in that field. I can say in the US, it wouldn't surprise me if we see a rise in more what we historically call real money gaming, like in esports and gambling, honestly. I'm not sure if you put those in the gaming kind of category, but there has been a there's been pushes from multiple states to legalize gambling, for example. And I see no reason why that wouldn't ultimately stretch towards the gaming environment and gamifying and gambling on something like esports. That's kind of way out in left field. I have literally no data or anything to suggest why that might be the case. I just see more gambling becoming legalized and figure that might be a natural progression of it within a gaming kind of space and economy.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, they are considered like in the gaming vertical. I mean, I guess the main problem there is like the legal part of each of the regions that they are working in, that they are, yeah, where are the users. So I guess we have time for one more question, maybe. Juan?
Okay, we have one more. This is for Pedro. It says, how do you target kids, in brackets, the users, at the same time with adults, in brackets, the buyers, in your gaming app? Are there different strategies for both?
That's regarding like user acquisition, or I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the product we have. So for example, if we look into Playkids app, it's an app for like small children. So our targets are parents, they're our clients actually, because what we provide is an educational entertainment platform that we can manage the content. Everything is curated, so it's not like harmful content, and they can be safe. So our clients are parents. If you're talking about our game PKXD, we have a mixed audience. So we actually rely on our gameplay, and we have a broad targeting strategy for that. And we actually work with a lot of influencers. So I don't know if you guys go into YouTube and search for PKXD, you're gonna see a huge amount of videos, and that's has been also our strategy for PKXD, because it builds the community. It's a social game. So we have some influencers that are like for children, others that are for an older audience. So it's a broad strategy.
Tommy, is there something you want to add on the targeting?
There's honestly not much when it comes to targeting kids from versus adults. When it's retargeting, I mean, we're not allowed to target kids, right? That's part of COPA compliance, and that's just it's a good thing in general. Basically, for us, the onus is on the advertiser to be able to tell us, was this a person under the age of, I forget what the appropriate age is for COPA, but let's just say 18, right? We need the advertiser to pass that information to us. We're just a DSP, right? We serve ads based on the IDFAs or GIDs that are provided to us, and try to drive some reaction or engagement from the consumer on the other end, right? So for us, we get data from someone, but also our supply partners are able to often share age data with us that we can layer on to our targeting to ensure that we're targeting people who are of the appropriate age and can legally be served an ad. So it's really just a straightforward kind of technical thing that we do.
Yeah, on like also regarding like from the administration point of view, we have to guarantee that the what we get is also appropriate. So we have the targetings and everything working, so the users see ads that are appropriate for them.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, thank you very much. I guess we're almost in time. Thank you very much for participating today, Tommy, Karina. It was really nice to hear from you, your experiences and your sharing, like your knowledges for this year and your perspective. Just to remind, this webinar has been recorded, and everyone can you will get after this session the email with a recording to watch it on demand. See you on the next session, and thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.